create graphical user interfaces. So far, when you want to interact with user, either to get some input from users or to display something to users, what have we been using? Scanner for inputting and print like system out.println for outputting things to the user. Okay. Do you think this is a good user experience?
No.
The users will really like it? No. Believe me, they will throw away your application. This is not, you cannot do this we are almost 2020, you cannot do this anymore. People are so used to sophisticated mobile applications, sophisticated web applications. You cannot really give them a character-based interface. So we need to create a graphical user interface, and luckily Java has some libraries and packages that will help us to build such user experience, to build such graphical user interface. So there have been other technologies before, but this is the first time in this course we are covering this JavaFX. A very exciting topic. So I want to share with you introduce how we build graphical user interfaces using JavaFX, and as we move forward, further examples and further explanations will be provided. So I will leave giving the outline to next time. I just want to jump quickly, introduce the idea, and then show you a couple of motivating examples. First, our goal is to send these user interfaces to the museum forever, and that's it. We will not use this black screen, scary black screen anymore. We're moving on to something better, a graphical visual interface to allow our users to comfortably enter the data we're requesting them to, and we present the information to them in a much nicer way. Also, it's easier for us as developers to do so, rather than using scanner or using system out to interact with user. Critical importance is to really understand this slide. So first here, we have a graphical user interface for a particular application. So such graphical interface is made up of forms, one or many forms. And a form is made up of UI components. And these UI components could be buttons, labels, drop-downs, menus, and so on. So let me show you here in Outlook. So in Outlook, what we have this form that has, like, this is the tree view, plus we have another list here, there's another kind of labels there, a lot of controls, and we have a menu on the top. Yeah? When I go here and click this new email, I get another form, this time with three boxes, three text boxes, couple of buttons here, and there is a drop-down button, and there is a rich text box here. I can type more. And there are a lot of menu here, or menu items, kind of buttons that I can click and do something. Yeah, that's basically the idea of a graphical interface, an application with a graphical user interface. It's made up of one or many forms, and each form is made up of UI components or user interface elements. What could be these user interface elements? Buttons, drop-downs, labels, text boxes, check boxes, menu items, toolbar. The top there you see there is a toolbar. This is a toolbar with a lot of buttons. That's what a graphical user interface is. So as developers, we need to provide and develop this user interface. We will see how to do this. And plus, you see when I click such button, let's say here, some action need to take place. Yeah. For example, in here, when I click, it's supposed to send this email, but I didn't put the recipient of this email, so it's saying to me, this is nonsense. Give me some destination email, as otherwise I will not send it. Okay. So as soon as I put some destination email, then I try to send. It will warn me. You want to send them without a title? This is not very polite. Say, oh, who cares? send it. Yeah, and I say send, and it will go ahead and send it. So what I mean here is these components here, these user interface components, the user interacts with them, either through clicking or ticking or selecting from a drop-down or typing in the text box. And then when the user interacts with these components raise events. They tell us, they come back to us, to our program and say, oh, the user clicks that button, and the user selected from this drop-down, and the user typed something in the text box. So these components, they raise events. And us as developers, what do? We write code to handle those events. We write what is known as event handlers. So this is the programming model. It's kind of clear. Of course, I will show you an example shortly what this all means in practice. But for now, what I want you to keep in mind is this. So a UI of an app is made up of, this is the aggregation. Remember the aggregation symbol? Is made up of one or many forms. And a form is made up of one or many UI components. Okay, and the UI component, when the user interacts with it, it raises an event, such as the clicked event or changed events. And us as developers, what do? We listen to the events when they happen, and then we handle them by writing some code. For example, in the case of Outlook, the Microsoft people, they wrote some event handler. When the user clicked the send button, they first validate whether the destination email was entered. If it's not entered, they will give you an error and you cannot move forward. Once you enter the email, if you don't put the subject, they will warn you. If you say go ahead, they will go ahead and send the email. Or if you provided all the information, you click the button and they wrote some code to send it. It's clear the idea of how the programming experience and model works? Okay, so now just a little bit of terminology. In JavaFX, the forms are called stage. We just need to kind of accept this terminology that the JavaFX people use. And then the form has a container, and this to put inside it the components, the UI components, and that container is called a scene. So in JavaFX, we have a stage, and within the stage there is a scene, and within the scene there are components. Form is known in JavaFX as stage, and within a form or a stage we find a scene, and a scene is nothing but a container in which we will place our UI components to be displayed. So you can think of this is the whole form that you see on the screen is called stage. And then within a stage there is a scene, and the scene is the container where we will place our elements. Okay, now let me show you what this means in practice. Here is an example. That's what keeps me busy and I didn't complete the grading. All right, here is the first example, the first ever JavaFX app we will do in this course. So let me first run it and then explain it. Here it is. Here it is. Now, to create a JavaFX user interface or graphical interface, I must create a class, and this class must extend this base class called application. And then once I extend that application, I must implement this method called start. From where this method is coming? From the application, from the base class, which is application. Okay. Now this start method magically it gives me as a developer an object called stage. The stage is basically this form that you see here, the whole thing. Oh, sorry. This whole thing that you see is the actual stage. This is the stage.
The whole window.
The whole window, yes. Thank you very much. The whole window is a stage. And then what I'm doing here, let me just reduce the size. So what this line is doing? Yes, it is setting the title of the stage. Can you see a stage set title? See my first app. Can you see it there up here? This is my first app. Yep. Okay. And then stage.show. What stage.show does? Show it on the screen. Show the whole stage, the whole form, or the whole window, if you like. Yeah. So they didn't call it form, they didn't call it window, they called it stage. Okay. Now, because this is an app, of course, it must have a main method. And the main method, what the main method does, it launches the app. And this launch is a method that comes from the application class. And that's it. This is the first idea. So when I want to create a JavaFX graphical user interface app with the graphical user interface, what I need to do, create a class. That class must extend application class. And this application class comes from JavaFX. It's living under, as you can see here, JavaFX.application.application. Okay? Then, once I extend the application class, I must override a method called start. And that method start magically gives me this, automatically gives me this object called stage. And the stage, all I can do with it, if I wish, I can set the title of the stage, which is setting the title of the window and showing the window. That's it. And then we have a main method to launch the whole application. Is the first example clear? So we have the stage. Now, if I want to put something inside here, inside the actual application, what do I need to have? A scene. I need to create a scene and then place it in the stage. Then it will show to the user. Okay, so let's do this. So the next one I will show you is the hello world. Let me run this. Again, it runs, as you can see here. And it shows here a label in the middle of the whole scene. So I have a stage. Within the stage, I have a scene. And within the scene, I have a label. And what is written in the label? Hello world. Yeah? Okay, so let me now show you how this is done. What do you think? How this form is created or how this application is created?
Now we have to have
So I've created a class, and that class extends application. And when I extend the application, I implement start. In start, what do I get? Stage object. Stage object. Then I set the title if I wish. In this case, what did I set the title to? Hello World app. Then, what else I did? Created a scene object. Created a label and put the label in the scene. Took the scene and placed it in the stage. And now it shows up in the stage. Okay, so let me show you how this is done. So you can see here, I created a label. Here is the label that you see here in the middle. So JavaFX comes with so many UI components, pre-built. We don't need to build them from scratch. It comes with very, very rich set of components. Here is just a list of few of them, not all of them. Okay, so for example, we have here accordion, a button, a menu, a color picker, a combo box, a list, a menu, password field, slider, radio buttons, lists, and so on. Table view, so many pre-built components. I can just use them in my application. One of them we are using in this super simple one that we are doing now. Which component I'm using? Label. Label is just display some text, a read only, no change, just a read only. Okay, so what I'm doing here, creating an object here, instance of label, and then I am putting this hello world text in that label, initializing the label with this text hello world. Then what the second line is doing? Positioning that label in the middle of the form. You can see here when I change this one, it stays in the middle. Automatically stays in the middle. What the line that allows me to do this, set alignment position, I want you to set it in the middle. It will be by default on the top left by default. So if I comment this out and rerun this, in this case in the middle, in this case in the middle left, See, if I wish, I can change this one, top center, no, top center. Okay, if I rerun, it will be always on top and the center. Even if I change this, it doesn't move. But it is more interesting now to put it in the fully on the center. So if I reposition or if I resize, you can see here it stays in the middle all the time. Okay. Now I have the label. Before I can put the label in the stage, what do I need to do? Before I can put the label in the stage, I have to create a scene. This is how. There is no magic here. It's just this is how the JavaFX people or designers or developers, they designed it. They ask us to have a stage will be given to us. Before we can put any components in the stage, we first need to create a scene, put our components in the scene, and then put the scene in the stage. And the reason for this is that a stage can have multiple scenes, as we will see later on. Okay. All right, so if I want to create a scene in here, what I'm doing, I'm saying, okay, please use this label as the root of the scene and make the scene 600 pixels wide and 300 pixels the height of the scene. And then I want you to take the scene and set the scene. Let me just move this up to make it clearer. I want you to put the scene in the stage. How do I put the scene in the stage? Set scene and give it the scene object. Finally, I put the title of the stage and show the stage. And that's it. This is the idea. And this is what I get. Is clear? So I have a stage, and before I can visualize some components on the stage, I create a scene, add the components I want to the scene, and then set the scene or place the scene in the stage and show the stage. That's basically the idea. All right. Okay, third example, hopefully is much more interesting. So let me run it first. What you see here is I have a stage again, which is a window. It has a label and a button. And this button, you can see it's kind of inviting me to keep clicking on it. And as I click, what happened to the text? The color changes. Yeah? So this is what's happening here. There is some events. We are listening to some event. Which event we are listening to? The click event. Once the button is clicked, what do we do as an event handler? We change the color. We construct a random color, and then we keep changing. We change the color every time the user clicks the button. Yeah. Okay. So what do you think? What is the? How did we develop this form? Or no, there's no. No, I mean the overall picture. How did we create this form or this application? So we created the class. This class extends application. We implement start, we have a stage, we create a scene, we add components to the scene, and then we place the scene in the stage and we show the stage. Yeah. What else we are doing in this actual application? We're listening to the button click event. And when the button is clicked, what happens? We listen to that event and we change the color of the text. That's what's going on, yes? Now, concretely, how this is done. So let me show you how this is done. So if I go up here, so what I have here, this is my label. I will come to this. This is my label, yes? The first is the label followed by a button. Here is my label, here is my button. And then what I am doing, I am putting them in a V box. What a V box allows me to take a look at this. Even if I change this one, this is always in the middle. Second, these components are placed one beneath the other in a vertical way. Yeah? And this is done automatically without me positioning those elements. I'm not saying, oh, label, please go to pixel 10 on the left and pixel 100 on the top. I'm not manually positioning them. I'm basically putting them in a container, in this case in a V box. What the V box stands for? It's a vertical box. Yeah. By the way, I can change it to H box. What H box means? Horizontal box. And when I change them, what do you think will happen to the user interface? They will be next to each other horizontally. So what do you think the V box and the H box are doing? They allow us to do automatic layout of our form, automatic positioning of components.
What if I want to do both at the same time? For example, 1, 2, 1, 2.
Yeah, we will see. Yeah, there are a lot of UI layouts. We will come to that. Yeah, this is just the beginning. Okay, so what I did here, so if I close this one and rerun it, you can see I will get them horizontally. Can you see them here horizontally? Because I use the H box instead of V box. So let's put it back to V box. I add my, this is how I add them to the V box. I first create a label and a button, and then go to the root, which is a V box. I call getChildren.addAll, and I add these two components. Then what this root.spacing is doing, root.spacing, you can see here the space between the consecutive elements. There is some space in between. That space is 8 pixels. Yeah, just to show you, if I make it, let's say 28 or 20, yeah, I rerun. You can see now the space is bigger. Yeah. Okay. What this set positioning, set alignment, position center? Again, yeah, position it in the center. If I resize my window, my V box is always in the center of the stage. All right. The rest you know what to do. Scene, I create a scene. Scene always takes a root as one of the attribute, one of the parameters I pass in the constructor. In this case, what is the root of the scene? The V box. And what is this 200, 200? The width and the height. Then I set the stage. This I place the scene in the stage using set scene. And this is the color changer as a title of the stage. And then I show the stage. What is left to really understand? What is left? How to do the color change. How do we handle events? Yeah. So the way we handle events is very, very easy. I come to the button and I say, button, please let me know whenever you are clicked. How do I ask the button to let me know whenever it's clicked? By going to the button and say set on mouse click. Yeah. So in here, I listen to this on mouse click. When this on mouse click happens, I get an event. And then I can do something with this event or respond to this event. In this case, all I am doing, I'm generating 3 numbers, 3 random integers between 0 and 255. And then 3 random numbers, the red, green, and blue, and using this function here called RGB. RGB is a function that takes 3 colors, the red, the green, and the blue, and generates another color. So you know this, from these three colors, these are the three basic colors, you mix them with different proportion and you get different colors. Yeah, and then I use that color to change the text of the label. So I go label, set text field, and I give it the color. That's what's going on. It's clear? Yeah. Okay, moving on. Another example here, let me run it and then I will explain it. Here is interesting example. Okay, so what I have in this example, again, this is a stage, and what do you think it has? Three labels. It has two labels. This is the first label, this is the second label, and it has an image. Yeah. So the first label is static, means I typed this. I typed it in the actual label. The second one is dynamic. Is not typed, it's dynamic. The system, when it runs, it works out what is the version of Java, which is 13, and what is the version of JavaFX, which is 13.0.1, and it displays this information. Yeah. So now let me show you how this is done. Okay, this is even more interesting. So if I right-click here and say Open in Scene Builder, the good news is the JavaFX comes with a designer called Scene Builder. And this designer allows me to visually create my forms or my stage. Visually create it. Instead of writing code as we did earlier to create the visual interface, I use this tool. And I design it as if I'm doing a PowerPoint. We all did PowerPoint, yes? We have in here we have the components. You see how many components we have here? So many components. Let me just sections. These are containers. You asked about various containers. So many containers. We will see later. Which containers did we use so far? You see the H box and the V box. There are many others. And here are the controls. So many controls. Checkbox, color picker, combo box, date picker, so many of them. And there are menus and so on. Okay, you just drag and drop here. So let me just come here, delete this button. And all I do, if I want to add a button, I can look for it here. Here is a button. I'll take it, drag it here. This is a V box. This is a V box. Drag it there, it's there. And then I come here and change the text. Say hello, for example. Yeah. And this window gives me the actual components. So the actual components, I have a VBox as a container. And within the VBox, you can see here when I click, it gets selected in the visual. And I can change the text. Can you see here, welcome to JavaFX? I can put here whatever I want to change. And I can change, you see here, instead of black, I can change the color. Okay, so you can change the way you wish, as if you are doing PowerPoint. It's nothing really fancy. So you drag components, you put them in this form, and then you change the visual properties of them. You change the visual properties, okay? All right, so I can put here. Interesting. Yeah, okay. So, and then the changes that I did are visible here, yeah? And my button, everything is there. All right. Okay, what else I want to show? This is basically the idea. So what I have here, I can create the visual interface either by code, as we did here, or let me show you this one. Either by code, I created the VBox object, created the label object, and then added the label and the button to the VBox, and configured the VBox by code. Or I can use the scene builder and drag and drop the components into the form and customize them the way I wish. Now, moving on, I just want to give you other glimpse of what we will be achieving, hopefully, as we move forward. And then now I'll switch to more details. So as we move forward in the next week or by the end of the week or early next week, we should be able to build something like this with the radio buttons, with the drop downs, combo boxes, sorry, these are check boxes, radio buttons, with lists, and even with tables, table like this. I can even add here. With the date picker, I pick the date and do add. Yeah. I can even do here view person details. Go back. Yeah. Go back. This is what I mean. That's why, here I have a stage, and when I click this, I get either I get another stage or I get another scene of the same stage. Yeah. And I can go back if I wish. So this is what we intend to achieve. And not only this, as you can see here, when I click some buttons, there is some action that takes place. When I click another button, there is another action that takes place, and so on. Yeah, so we will see how we will get familiar with common containers such as VBox, HBox. We will get familiar with common UI components such as let's say table views, such as buttons, text boxes, drop downs, and then we will get familiar on how we write event handlers to handle events. So what is JavaFX after all of this? So JavaFX is a Java library for creating graphical user interfaces. And it comes with a pre-built UI components, many pre-built UI components. You can see here the list of some of the UI components. And when we create a graphical user interface, is nothing but composing these components and putting them in a scene and putting that scene in the stage and showing them. And of course, listening to events coming from those components and writing some event handlers. This is just those of you not familiar with the names of those components. We all seen this. We all filled up forms on the web, so many forms. Similar components, you have seen drop downs, you have seen password field, radio boxes, sliders, text boxes, tables, lists. We will see all of these, most of them as we move forward. So these components could be divided into visual components such as buttons, text boxes, menus, tables, lists. Some of these components are just containers. We use them to help us do the layouts of our page or our form, such as the VBox and the HBox. And then these UI components, they do nothing but, of course, visualize the information that we give them, but they also raise events. When the user interacts with them, they let us know. They let our program know, and then our program can react by executing some code associated with the event. Okay. Now, if you want to create a user interface in practice, this is what you will do. This is what you should do. First of all, before you touch any JavaFX or anything, take pen and paper and design how the user interface will look like. How it will look like on pen and paper. Discuss it with your users to get some idea. Choose the components, appropriate components, either a radio button or drop down or radio button or text fields. Choose among what is the most suitable component. And the layouts, how you want to do the layout. Is it horizontal, vertical? Is it like a grid? So many layouts that we will see. You do this on paper, on pen and paper. And then you take your pen and paper, open your scene builder, and then draw what you have decided on pen and paper, draw it visually using scene builder. Then connect connect that design with your code so that when the user interacts with the UI components, you react by handling those events, by writing some event handlers. That's what GUI development is. Yeah, you design the UI, you go ahead and create the UI, typically visually, this is very super simple. And then you connect the UI, the visual UI with your code to handle events. And those events could be click events, change events, and so on. This I already explained. When you create a JavaFX application, you need to create a class, and that class must extend application, yeah? Must extend application class, and you must override the start method, and this start method automatically get this stage object, and the stage object represents the window. You can just go ahead and show it, or you can create a scene, place the scene in the stage, and show the stage, as I explained here. So typically in a real scenario, you will create a scene, and then from the scene, you can add component to the scene. Then you show, then you place the scene in the stage, and finally show the stage. And then, okay, so we already seen this example here. So this whole thing is called the stage. Within it, we have a scene. This is the inside of the stage. And within the stage, we have a VBox. And within the VBox, we place a label and a button. And then we listen to the on-click event. And then whenever the user clicks, we generate a random color, and we change the color of the label. That's what we did in that particular example. We will see this, we've seen this other example. I had a label and a picture. Later on, next session, we will do this example together, where I have a tip calculator. Like if you are in a restaurant, you have the amount to be paid, the percentage of the tip you want to pay. It will calculate the tip and the total, yeah, as an example. So all of them are labels and text boxes, except this one is a slider that you can move around. And then there is an event here, an event handler. When you click, it will take this value, multiply it by this one, write the value, the result here, and this one plus this one, write it here. That's what calculate will do. Okay. Now, in the scene must have a root element. And typically this root element is one of the containers that JavaFX has. JavaFX has so many containers. The one we have just seen is the HBox container, and there is the VBox container. There's also the grid, the flow pane, and so on. We will see some of them. So let's start with the VBox. So the VBox, for example, in this scenario, I have a VBox, and in the VBox, I want to place 3 buttons, one beneath the other. So all I do, you can see here, I go ahead, create a VBox object, and then create 3 buttons. Then I go and say roots, which is the instance of the VBox, .getChildren.add, and I add all the buttons. And this will automatically show them like that. Okay. I can also set the spacing. I can set the spacing as I showed you, set spacing. I put how many pixels I want between spaces, and also set the position, whether I want it in the center or the top center, bottom left. It's up to me the way I want to position it. Now, in UI component, as you saw, UI component, they have attributes such as the color, the font, the position. They also have methods. For example, you saw in the VBox, it has a method called setPosition. These two allows me to configure the UI component, to configure how it will look like, how it is positioned, what text do I put inside it. And then this UI will be visualized to the user. The user will interact with it. Click, change, tick. Those interactions will raise events. And then us as developer, we listen to those events and handle them. So this is the summary. This is very important. This is the whole idea of UI development. So in UI development, I create visual components, such as buttons, for example. I go ahead and configure them, change the color, change the text, change the position. And then typically, I add them to some kind of container or layout, so they will be positioned easily. And finally, I start listening to events coming from them and doing something when that event happens. That's what really graphical interface is. It's quite different from what you are used to. It's a different thing. So graphical user interface, you create the form, you design it visually using Scene Builder, and you configure those UI elements, you configure them. When I say configure, change text, color, position, and so on. Then you start listening to events coming from them, and you write some code to handle those events.